It's now time for Matt and Dan in the house of... Hello, welcome all, and welcome to Matt and Dan in the house of...
Qua!
Exactly. So welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Brand new show. With me and Dan. It's the first time we've done a podcast. We've never actually done one before.
Yeah.
So this is all new to us. So we mess up. We don't know why. So we get straight into it. I guess that's what we do. So first of all, we're going to have a look at what this podcast is all about, really. Today's podcast is mainly...
Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, it's an introduction, isn't it? It's mainly an introduction, explain who we are, what we're going to be talking about, and things to come throughout the months, I guess, with Matt and Dan, House of Quark. So there we are. There's our logo. There's Quark. I got to say, he's really easy to Photoshop because he's got such a nice, smooth hair.
I was going to say, you've done a really good job there. That was really good.
It was. I mean, the problem with Photoshop, when you have people with hair, and it's really hard to get the hair like in the line when you're cutting them out. But with Quark, he's just very simple to Photoshop.
Always pick the Ferengi for your logo.
Exactly. That's the deal. Life lesson there for you all. Always pick a Ferengi. Right, and so what is today, of course, as I said, this is our introduction podcast. Just introduce to you who we are, what we're all about, and what this show's all about, of course. So first of all, you've got me. That's me. My hair is a lot shorter in this picture. This was taken way before.
That was when you were going through your boy band phase.
My boy band phase, yeah. My boy band, my Robbie Williams boy band.
Yeah.
I mean, this is obviously before lockdown. You can see a lot more clean shaven and more presentable there than I am now, I guess, because lockdown and can't get myself a haircut. But still, there I am. So yeah, my name is Matt. Of course, very good friend of Dan's. Me and Dan, Dan will explain a bit more about it when we get to him. But we start off in college. We both did performing arts acting. And from there, we've always loved Star Trek and things like that. So that's what we bonded over the most. Obviously, our passion with performing arts and acting and all that sort of stuff. But especially, I'd say Star Trek, isn't it? Really, that's what really got us. So yeah, that's me, Matt. So I work as an entertainer as well. I do bits and bobs. I work on a cruise ship mainly. At the moment, obviously, I'm not working, but I'm doing this podcast instead.
Yes.
Which is fun, of course. It's fun. So let's go over now to the main man. It's Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hello, there is me. Look at that. There we go. I look a little bit different, but I couldn't be asked to do like an up-to-date photo. So there we are. I just said to Matt, get one from Facebook. And there we are. That's my current profile picture on Facebook. Yes, hello. I'm Dan, as Matt said, a good friend of Matt. We've known each other since 2009.
2009, yeah. Over 10 years.
Yeah, and we're finally getting around to actually talking about Star Trek. But yeah, a bit about me. Studied acting in Carmarthen Uni, Trinity St David's. So I have an acting degree. As Matt said, we did the performing arts course in Cross Keys. So we both have entertainment backgrounds. We've both sort of done theatre and short films. Matt and I have made a few short films together, haven't we, Matt?
We have, yeah.
So yeah, we're big on our sort of film and TV. And yeah, currently not working, obviously, due to the current situation, but making this podcast instead.
Yeah.
And this podcast comes from actually because Matt and I hadn't spoken for ages, just because obviously he'd been away on the boat.
On the boat, yeah.
On the boat.
You say that like it's like a little rubber dinghy and it's just me on my own, just talking about Star Trek or watching Star Trek on my own on a little boat.
So obviously with the lockdown, you can't go out and meet people. So it'd been a while since I'd actually rang you, hadn't it? It'd been a while since we spoke.
Yeah.
And it was just quite funny because instead of actually talking about how we are and how we're doing in life, we ended up just talking about Star Trek for an hour.
Star Trek, yeah.
So that's where this podcast comes from. It comes from a phone call that was meant to be sort of see how you're getting on in life, but it's turned into this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it started off just literally me and Dan just talking about Star Trek, and then eventually one of us just turned around and said, "Oh, this sounds like a podcast."
Yeah.
So there we are. Then we thought, let's make a podcast.
Exactly. So here it is.
Well, like Dan said, obviously, we're education-wise, we started off in college. We went to different universities. I forgot to mention I went to uni. Of course, I did go to uni. It's been a while now.
Let's have a degree.
We went to different unis then. Although we did similar sort. I think I did theatre and media, and you did focus more mainly on acting. I believe, is that right?
Mainly on acting, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you still did performances in your course, though, didn't you?
Exactly, yeah. So it was still it's still similar sort of stuff, and yeah, and still close together, still doing little projects when we can. I mean, me and Dan as well, we used to do a lot of films, if you remember, when we were students. We used to get together and do a lot of films with a good friend of ours, Nick Brimble. I'm going to just shout out now to Nick Brimble, because I know he's watching eventually.
Yeah, he loves his Star Trek, does Nick?
I know he's watching the year 2020, I mean 2022. Oh, wicked, right? And so yeah, that's just a little introduction.
That is us.
That's us, yeah. So let's have a look. Oh, so we're getting new to this. Okay, so as you can see, we've got Spot the Cat there and Data.
Yeah. There's a very weird picture of Spot there.
I was thinking that. I mean, that's.
I don't think that's Spot.
I don't know. Maybe it's. I don't know. It's.
He's
I don't know. I can't even explain it. It's the eyes for me. Yeah, it's the. I don't understand the artist who obviously did this, where he had the eyes, where the eyes came from, but.
It kind of it looks like the artist started to draw a cat and then finished with a bat.
He had a bat, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, there's Data and Spot, and he's just going to list out all the things that we're going to talk about.
Take it away, Data.
Take it away, Data. So first of all, what we talk about. So simply, what do we talk about on this show? So we talk about mainly Star Trek, of course, because Star is what we're all about. I mean, we're called Matt and Dan House of Quack for a reason. We're named after a Star Trek episode, a DS9 episode on season 3.
DS9 episode, there we go.
Which is a great episode, which we love.
Yeah.
However, we do talk about other science fiction shows as well. We do like, I know you love your Stargate, don't you?
I do like my Stargate, yes. So some of you listening or watching might also like Stargate. Because quite a few actors have crossed over from Stargate to Star Trek. But so for me, Stargate is another franchise that I absolutely adore, much like Star Trek.
Yeah,
so,
you were saying that, weren't we? How all like the sci-fi actors all seem to do the rounds. Really, they all go to.
But we'll get on to that.
Star Trek on Saturday, so they all sort of seem to do their rounds. Where they go around them all. I mean, I'm currently watching, of course, Farscape, which is it's fantastic. From I think it started in 1999 through the early 2000s, and I think it's fantastic. I'm on season 3 at the moment, and I'm absolutely loving Farscape. Absolutely incredible. It's a great story. If you haven't watched Farscape, highly recommend it. I'm only on.
I do want to watch Farscape because again, like you say, Matt, like quite a few actors from Farscape are in Stargate. So.
Oh, there we are then.
Yeah, and I'm currently watching Firefly, the one season that there was.
Yeah.
And obviously the movie. So yeah, I'm getting through that, which is nice. Again, there's 2 actresses in Firefly that are in Stargate. So again, actors crossing over.
Yeah.
But really enjoying Firefly at the moment.
I like Firefly as well. I mean, like we said, it's like such a popular science fiction show.
It is really
one season. it does blow your mind. It's amazing because every person I talk to, I talk about science fiction. They go, oh, you like Star Trek, and we end up talking about the science fiction. Maybe it could even be Star Wars or anything like that. They always seem to go back to talking about Firefly in some shape or form. They always end up talking about, and all the film Serenity as well, which is quite popular. So even though that franchise didn't last very long, it definitely made a massive impact. I'd say definitely.
Yeah, it's become a cult, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Itself, even though it's not.
You can still buy the merchandise for the
Yeah.
Yeah. But so like, we talk about all other things, well, not just Star Trek related. I mean, me as well. I'm big into all different mediums. I do read quite a lot. I mean, when I started reading, really, I think I started reading when I was a teenager. And H.G. Wells for me, it was always my favorite author, and Philip K. Dick, Isaac Asimov, and writers like that, really. But I also got into I got into a lot of graphic novels. Well, I'm trying to get down into graphic novels. I don't know if he's gonna.
I know I'm not much of a reader. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not much of a reader, but I have read fan fiction of Stargate. So, but Stargate Atlantis, because for people who want to know about the Stargate, there's 3 different series of Stargate. Stargate SG-1, which started it all. Well, the movie Stargate started it all.
Yeah.
They branched then off to Stargate SG-1, which then spawned Stargate Atlantis, and then it finished off with Stargate Universe, which we could get onto later, but not a lot of people liked Universe. But I loved Universe.
Mm-hmm.
But I finished watching Stargate Atlantis, and I loved it so much. Like, I was really into it. And I was really gutted that I finished it. So I started reading it's called the Legacy series, I think.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically just a continuation of what happens, like after the series ended. Really, it was written by I don't know their names, but 2 fans of the show.
Okay.
And it's become really popular, and it's spawned. I mean, there's a lot of SG-1 novels as well.
Yeah.
But I read all the Legacy series novels of Atlantis.
Oh wow, cool.
So that's the only bit of reading I've done, really, of of
cool.
Sci-fi. Really, I'm not big into my reading, but if I was to try and read a book, as it were, it would probably be a fan fiction novel.
Fan fiction. Well, that's fair enough. I mean, I've always fancied Shatnerverse. All the William Shatner novels about.
I remember you telling me about Shatnerverse. And also, there's quite a lot of. I mean, there's loads and loads of Star Trek novels, but I've always sort of thought about perhaps reading the DS9 novels. Because again, when I finished watching DS9, I was so gutted that I'd finished it because I loved it so much.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I need it to carry on. You know what I mean? So, but it was hard to sort of get the books and novels, really.
I understand that. I mean, there's one because a comic series I've always wanted to pick up, and I can't remember what it's called for the life of me right now. But it's basically it's a crossover universe with Doctor Who and Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh yeah. I think I have that somewhere.
You actually have that one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll have to dig it out for you. Send it.
Yeah, it's a cross between obviously the Borg and the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Which is quite.
I haven't. I don't think I've read it yet, or I've got it somewhere. I think it was a Christmas present, and
that's
I haven't got around to it yet. But
yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It was Matt Smith as the Doctor. And,
I think
and that's another one that we both like. We both like Doctor Who.
yeah, we do both like Doctor Who. Yeah. I mean,
can't go wrong with a bit of Doctor Who.
Everyone gets that is the BritBox, isn't it? Obviously the new.
Yeah. Don't you have that though? You have that.
I think they've got Doctor Who on there. Yeah. If they've got Doctor Who on, I mean, I'm in the class.
I thought you had BritBox.
No, I haven't bothered yet. But I think you get 30 days.
But all the Doctor Who's are on there from like the first.
They are on there. Okay, yeah. No, I like.
Well, I'm pretty sure they are.
No, I like to check them out definitely. Because I mean, I watched the very first episodes before, because it's nice to see how it all starts off and things like that, you know.
Mm.
Because I think he is the doctor, is the doctor's daughter he's with, isn't that right? And then the teachers come with them, and I can't really remember. But
I
you
don't
know,
know. For me, Doctor Who, I haven't watched anything previous to when it came back with Christopher Eccleston.
I
So
love Christopher Eccleston, man.
yeah,
No, he's great,
Uh,
Christopher Eccleston. Yeah.
yeah, I really liked Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor.
I mean, I actually go as far as say he was my favourite Doctor in the relaunch, and
Really?
the reason for me is because he was just different. It's the idea that he was, you know, he was a northerner that wore a leather jacket. You know what I mean? That's what I liked about, you know, because Doctor Who's always been this southern man, obviously from the south of England, who wore, a coat, or he was quite, you know, smartly dressed, or, you know, whereas Chris Eccleston, I found he went against all that, and he became this northern, more of like a working class northerner with leather jackets, and a bit more gritty as well. I find that series to be
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it relaunched. So that's why I really like.
It would have been interesting to see what he would have done in his second series. If he'd
Yeah,
have done. For me, it was David Tennant, I think.
I did
Uh,
love David Tennant as well. I like Matt Smith as well.
and Matt Smith, yeah, David Tennant and Matt Smith. I think a lot of people, yeah, love David Tennant and Matt Smith era.
Yeah.
The only thing, obviously, is you could argue that they were both similar, because then if you go in by what you've just said about Eccleston, for me, Peter Capaldi was really different to Matt Smith.
Yeah, no, he was as well. Yeah, the only problem with that series, I don't know, if it was just the writing or something with Capaldi. I think I didn't blame him at all. I just think
I think
Howard
you're right
Chuck
there.
with the Sonic sunglasses, and
Yeah, yeah. I think Capaldi's second series, and how many did he do? Two series. I watched his first series, but then after that, then I just couldn't. I don't know. I just like you say, I think it was just maybe the writing, or I don't know.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, that's what we talk about as
Anyway, yeah.
an example of what we talk about. So we talk about everything basically. I think we should probably carry on now.
Yes.
Bored of us talking about this is a Star Trek talk, and you're all talking about Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Anyway, so why Star Trek? Why Star Trek?
Why do you like Star Trek, Matt?
Why do I like Star Trek? I mean, for me, it was like I said, my granddad liked Star Trek, so that's one reason I think I got, you know, drawn to Star Trek, because I know my granddad was a fan of the franchise. But not only that, for me as well. I mean, when I was younger, I liked Star Trek, but I wouldn't have said I was a fan. If I completely be honest with everyone out there, I mean, I really got into Star Trek actually back in 2009. But just before I met Dan, actually, and it was actually thanks to J.J. Abrams, I think, with the Kelvin universe, with the relaunch, because that got me watching Star Trek on the big screen, and it got me want to know more about. So I knew bits and bobs before, thanks to, you know, my granddad and stuff, and watched it on TV. But I wanted to know more about Star Trek. So I ended up just like watching all of the original series, and I ended up watching obviously TNG, and then I just been, as the years gone by, you know, going through them all, and then just loving the franchise more and more and more, basically.
You opened yourself up to a plethora of different series.
Exactly. So, and a lot of people do like rip into J.J. Abrams. For me, I think he opens doors to more Trekkies, which I think is important. Otherwise, the franchise will not survive without relaunches like what J.J. Abrams did.
Yeah, I think as well, some of it's down to me, obviously, because I was the one that was able to watch Enterprise.
That's true.
I need to watch Enterprise. Cool.
Yeah. No, I did watch Enterprise, and
and you did, and you loved it.
So what about you, Dan? Why Star Trek?
Why me? Well, for me, I was probably younger than you when I first started watching Star Trek. For me, it was all down to my older sister Emma, who I will give a wave to. Shout out to Emma, who is a big Trekkie. Growing up, she she was really big into her Star Trek, obviously the original series and TNG. And like when I was really young, I remember her watching it on the telly and stuff. And I always remember this was back in the day of VHS tapes.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's where you could record on a videotape and stuff. And she would record them all, TNG and Voyager and DS9 and everything. And she had a huge collection of all these VHS tapes. And I vaguely remember just one afternoon sort of asking her about it, and can we get them down from the loft? And I kind of just started watching. The first series I watched was TNG, because I think it was something about Patrick Stewart that I was drawn to, perhaps. I don't know, but for me it was my sister Emma. She was big into her Star Trek, and I kind of just followed on from that, really. I also remember the first time watching Voyager as well, when Voyager first came out. I can vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
And I was just so drawn to it.
Yeah.
But like I say, it was just down to my sister, really. She just got me watching that, and
I do think, like you said about that, you watched the odd Voyager when it came out on TV. I do think now people can sort of get more attached to Star Trek now than they could years ago, because obviously you'd had to make sure you caught the episodes on the TV.
Yeah.
Record them.
And unless you did something like my sister was doing, recording them, you
exactly. Whereas now, so you can just binge watch them on Netflix or Amazon or whatever you use, And I do think that's done the franchise wonderful things, really. Because
absolutely.
Like you got on Netflix now. Even now, I see what's trending today, or what's trending this week, in the UK or wherever. And it does come up Star Trek Voyager or Deep Space Nine, and so people are starting to watch these things more. Either it's just people like us watch them over and over again, or it is people obviously getting into.
I mean, I was so happy when Netflix announced that they had put their entire Star Trek on Netflix.
Yeah. That's why Star Trek. Yeah.
That is why Star Trek. I was going to say something else, but I've forgotten what it was. So.
Whenever it comes back to you, just let us know.
Oh, that was it. And another thing as well. So then, growing up, then we would. It was just around when conventions started really taking off. Like we'd go to things like Collectomania in Milton Keynes, not far from where I used to live. And I always remember my sister coming into my room going, "Hey Dan, would you like to meet Data?" And I'm like, "Yeah. What's this about?" And then obviously discovered Collectomania and collectors events, and I think that's really where my Trekkiness grew.
Yeah.
And I have his autograph up there,
amazing,
on my wall.
Amazing, incredible. I mean, I was meant to meet William Shatner, obviously.
You had tickets.
Unfortunately, due to current circumstances, it got cancelled. But I was meant to in Cardiff, actually. I was going to go in.
And when you meant to ask him a question, you had a certain ticket that meant.
It was VIP. Yeah, VIP ticket. So I got to have a picture with him, or photo opportunity at least. And it was to ask a question. And honestly, it's very hard to think of a question to ask William Shatner. I mean, a part of me wanted to ask him something simple. I wanted to ask him something like, how long did it take to choreograph the Gorn fight scene?
Question.
That's something he can answer. I didn't want to ask something he's like, or like too philosophical. I mean, part of me was thinking of asking something like, I recently watched a documentary. He talks about basically Star Trek, the philosophy of Star Trek, and how Star Trek works with science and the idea of a future utopia of Earth and all that stuff. And I was going to ask him about what about because there's I can't remember. There's the U.S. president that's actually said this. It's a quote from the U.S. president that said, "The only way man can have, or as in mankind, man can have world peace is if the aliens invade, because then we'll have to unite as one united Earth in order to defend our planet." And I wanted to say, do you think though, in a way, does that in a way linked to Star Trek at all? Would you think that realistically, would that what made Earth unite as one, or utopia future, but it would be because of fear, I guess, of outer powers from outer space coming in and taking our jobs or whatever. I don't know, is that idea, but I thought, is that a bit too philosophical, and or it's not a nice thing to say, but it's just I want to know what, he never mentioned that part at all. He was just talking about how science and space exploration will will bring world peace and all that. But I'm like, well, how would it be? Because of fear, or would it be because of something else? Or I don't know. But that was another thing I was thinking about asking. But well, in the end, I didn't ask him anything because
yeah, because then obviously all this started, and for that's a shame. Hopefully,
you are
one day.
listening, William Shatner. Can you answer both them questions for me, please? That'd be great.
You can try and tweet him or something.
Yeah, I'll try tweeting him. I mean, I don't know if he's going to listen to this bit, man. I think he'll probably get to us talking about Doctor Who and then just set it over. But
that's not Star.
Yeah. but anyway, so yeah, that's why I started. Also, as well,
that is why Star Trek.
I did write my dissertation on Star Trek when I went to university.
You did.
Yeah, to boldly go.
It is a great read, I must say. It was a great read. I had the pleasure of reading it.
Yeah.
You did. No wonder you ended up with the first.
Well, I think he was the guy who was marking it was a Trekkie.
Yeah, that also helps probably.
Well, no, the question was, to boldly go where no man has gone before. Star Trek, a social commentary on 1960s America.
Can you put your dissertation online if people want to read it, maybe?
I mean, as I'm honest with you, I have to find it first. I don't know where it is. It's been nearly 10 years now, I think, since I've done it. So I'll have to see if I can find it. But anyway, that's why Star Trek. There we go. We're nerds. There we go. Okay, moving on. Favorite series. Next, please, Data. Next, please. So my favorite series, number one. I think I'm going to pick two. I think let's pick two. Let's try and keep this simple. I'm going to pick number one. Is going to be the original series for me. The reason being, I think it is. Well, it is Star Trek. That's where it all began. You got amazing characters like Captain Kirk. You got Bones, of course, played by DeForest Kelly. You've got, of course, Scotty. You've got Leonard Nimoy, of course, as Spock. It's just perfect to me. Star Trek cast back then. They are like the Beatles of the sci-fi world. It's just perfect. They are. That's where it all began. You know what I mean? That's where it all began. They are they're the top band. Everyone's inspired from that group of people, that band, So that's why I think, to me, number one is the original series. Number two for me is Deep Space Nine. I absolutely love Deep Space Nine. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't watch Deep Space Nine for a few years, and then Dan said to me, watch Deep Space Nine, you're going to love it.
I absolutely did.
I thought, let's go for it, why not? And again, because thanks to streaming sites like Netflix and Amazon Prime, I can watch them anywhere in the world at any time I want to. And that's what's brilliant about those sort of services. So I ended up watching Deep Space Nine, and I absolutely fell in love with it. The idea of it's not necessarily Star Trekking anymore. They're not trekking anymore, but they stay in one place on a space station. And to me, it's more. It's more like how did I describe it yesterday? It's like the House of Commons of Star Trek.
You said it's more political, more.
Yeah, it is literally, because you have obviously the Federation, the Dominion, you got the Klingons, you got them all there. But then you also have the regular person, the regular Joe, the working class man's there as well, and he's part of that.
Yeah.
Right? You have bartenders, you have
well, this is. I mean, after I phoned you yesterday, this is what I was thinking about. Thought about it more. It kind of opened itself up to it. You could do a lot more with it in the. Because it was a hub, basically, for
that's what I mean by part. It's a
galaxy.
Hub, a place
so many different aliens and species could come and go and trade, and you got to see, obviously with the other series, which are great, like it's the Enterprise going to this planet, or dealing with the Prime Directive on this planet.
This is more of an adventure, isn't it? Whereas Deep Space Nine is about it. It sort of steps back a little bit from the adventure, but goes like, this is what the adventures of all these different ships, the Voyager and whatever, have an impact on the world or the universe of Star Trek, and I think it's perfect for that, and especially when it comes to issues like the Dominion War and like I say, I guess the average person who from different species, and say merchants and bartenders or whatnot, even criminals as well get involved, and it sort of highlights those sort of the average Joe. But also you still have like the big characters, as in obviously politicians, people who work for Starfleet, and all that part of it as well. So yeah, to me, Deep Space Nine again. I'm gonna put it number 2 in my list. I'm just gonna say 1 and 2 just for today. I'm sure when we do more podcasts, we'll go about more.
Yeah.
But, that's mine. That's my 1 and 2. So we've got original series and then DSM, Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Am I doing a 1 and 2 then?
No,
Shall I do?
Keep it to 1 and 2, I think, for today.
Right. Well, for me, I would say for a very long time, my number 1 was Next Generation. Like I said earlier, you know, I grew up with my sister watching Next Generation. For me, for a very, very long time, Next Generation was Star Trek.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about the original series, and I, you know, growing up, I wasn't even aware that, you know, there was DS9 or Voyager, and obviously I watched obviously when Voyager came out, or, you know, sort of caught the odd glimpse of it. But for a very long time, Star Trek for me was Next Generation.
Yeah.
So I would say that was my number 1, because I mean, my favorite character was obviously, you know, Data. Loved Patrick Stewart. But until I watched DS9, and I'm going to put DS9 as my number 1. For a very long time.
Okay.
Yeah, for a very long time, I would steer clear of DS9 because I thought
a lot of people did as well, didn't they? You always
I think because it is set on a space station, people want to just like space. I mean, and for me, like we just go into a planet on a spaceship, or, you know, sifting through the Delta Quadrant on Voyager, like people wanted a starship. And I think for me, it was because it was set just on a space station. It was kind of like, oh, that's boring. What's that? You know. So for a very long time, I stayed clear of DS9, and people would tell me that I did let other people's opinions get the best of me.
Yeah.
Stay clear of it because people said it wasn't that great. Until because I started watching it when I was on tour, when I did my first acting job with Five Horse Theatre Company. I was doing an anti-bullying tour, and I remember being, because I just got Netflix at that point, I think. Star Trek had just been put on Netflix, and like I said, I was really excited when that happened. And I was looking for something to watch because when I was on tour, I would suffer a lot with, well, not a lot, but I would get very anxious sometimes and a bit homesick.
Yeah.
And I've always been someone whose home is where the heart is for me.
Yeah.
So, and people might agree with this, people might not. Star Trek has a lot. Whatever series you watch of Star Trek, it does have a big sense of family. So regardless of whichever series you watch, you know, I find Star Trek comforting because it is that sense of family. So I thought, well, you know, I've never seen DS9. I need something to watch on Netflix, you know, to take away from the anxiety and whatever. I've never seen DS9. It's just been put on Netflix. Let's watch it. And I watched it, and I tell you, it made me feel so much better. Like, it was just, I was like, how have I not watched this before? Like I said, I thought being on a space station is boring, but how good is it? Like, it's really, like I said, it's that sense of family, and I think I connected to it most because obviously I was away from home.
Yeah.
And I would be homesick, and I'd put on an episode of because I just watched them on my iPad when we got back from doing the shows. Like I say, I connected to it so much because I think, especially with DS9, I would say has a stronger sense of family because it's so many, you know, it's all these characters in one place, and, you know, do you know what I mean? It's so many different characters. You've got like Quark and Ron, like the comedians, like they're like the funny brothers. You've got like Odo, who's just like the weird uncle. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. And I think with DS9 as well, in a way, well, you got the whole idea you said about family as well. I think is really important because like you said, like you're never really drawn to DS9 before, and in a way, DS9 is like the what's the underdog sort of series, isn't it? In a way, and in a way, you look at it well. All the characters, in some shape or form, are underdogs in themselves. I mean, they're on a space station, which was basically failing. It was falling apart.
Yeah. Well, Cisco wasn't even captain when it first happened.
That's what I mean.
He was commander. He wasn't.
He didn't even won the job, if you remember. At the start, you got Jake as well, obviously struggling to adapt because his dad's got his new job and he has to adapt in this really strange place.
He wants him to go to Starfleet, but he doesn't want to.
Exactly. You've got obviously, you got Quark as well. Obviously, we're all about Quark on this show, but Quark again, he's in a way, well, he is. He's not. Well, he's a criminal, really. Isn't he? He's sort of an anti-hero character, really. All Ferengis in some shape or form are. But you grow to love him. And also you have characters like Morn as well. Morn is just an alcoholic, really. Who doesn't say. And I love Morn as well. So in a way, they are all like the underdog sort of character. Odo, for instance, Odo at the start, he is a loner. He's a guy who has no friends or family. And he has to adapt and live with all these different races and all this.
Yeah, and well, for a long time, he believes he's the only one of his, species left.
I mean, it is the underdogs altogether, really.
Yeah. I'd say Nog as well is an underdog because Nog wants to go to Starfleet, but there's never been a Ferengi in Starfleet before.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Which and then they all work really nicely together because again they end up building this sort of family relationship with each other, and I just think it works perfect.
It does, yeah. So I connected to it so much, like watching DS9 through that tour, and then when I took on my second acting job when I did the RAF tour, I'd sort of got further along. I think by that point I was in season 4 or season 5.
Yeah.
And I ended up finishing DS9 whilst on tour to season 7. And yeah, like it would make me feel so much better because, like I say, I would get homesick a lot, and I think that's why I put it at my number 1 because it brought me a lot of comfort.
Yeah.
And I think another reason as well why I like DS9 is because of, obviously, in most series you've got, well, in all of the series you've got one continuous storyline. Obviously, Voyager's continuous storyline is they're trying to get home.
Exactly.
Yeah. Enterprise, you have Enterprise, and obviously in season 3 you've got the Xindi arc, but obviously throughout DS9, which is where I'm going with my point, obviously is the Dominion.
Yeah.
And what I liked about it most is, especially in the final couple of seasons, a lot of episodes would carry on from each other.
Yeah, I know.
It hadn't really been done before in a Star Trek. Do you know what I mean? It sort of because half of the second half of season 7 is basically just one long episode, really, isn't it? It is the Dominion War, isn't it? So, and I think that's why I liked it most because obviously the standalone episodes were great, but it was nice to sort of have continuous. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know, definitely. I 100% I agree with you on that, definitely. Yeah, DS9, yeah. I think
DS9 is my number 1. So then I would put Next Gen as my number 2 because that is obviously that is the first Star Trek I watched. And I hadn't even watched the others. It's only actually recently that I've watched the original series.
Yeah.
So I'm currently making my way through the films now, but and the animated series.
Yeah.
Which I should say before we move on. Sorry.
No,
I'm blabbing on. I watched I watched a couple of episodes of the animated series today after my run, and the Harry Mudd episode came on
Yeah.
of the animated series, which was good. So yeah, I just thought I'd tell you that because we were talking about it yesterday on the phone.
Yeah. Is that the love potion one? Doesn't he give him?
Yeah, the love potion one. Yeah, the Nurse Chapel.
Yeah.
One. Yeah. So.
Gene Roddenberry's wife.
Gene Roddenberry, the voice of the computer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right then, let's move on.
Right,
Then.
yes. What's our next point?
Why is it? Data. So, favorite characters. So this is quite interesting because again, you could see this in all different ways, I guess. Because I guess my favorite character in Star Trek, me personally, has always been Captain Kirk for me.
Yeah.
I think
whenever I think of you, I think of Captain Kirk because I know that's your favorite character.
Captain Kirk for me, he is just a typical hero. He's like Zach Brannigan, I think, from Futurama is based on Captain Kirk. The whole arrogant, but he's handsome. He can do what he wants, sort of, but he's still very cool. And and to me, it's just his comparison with all the other captains. All the other captains are very, like you have Picard. He's very like, no, we need to, negotiate, and sort things out properly. Whereas Captain Kirk's like, no, just fire torpedoes now. It's like, but Kirk, there's a lot of innocent people on it. But even though I don't really agree with that, obviously, but as obviously a piece of fiction, which it is, it's just it's that sort of arrogant character. And if it wasn't for Captain Kirk, obviously, I mean, if you look at Star Trek through the timeline, it's important that the Enterprise were. I mean, for instance, Janeway describes them as cowboys, and if they were around Starfleet around the same time as Voyager, they'd probably be kicked out. All them sort of, like Sulu and Spock and all that. Whereas, but I just love it though. It's to me, he is the textbook example of a hero. The all-American hero. He's arrogant and all that, and he always gets the girl, but it's played fantastic by William Shatner. A lot of people say it wouldn't or whatever, but I just think it's perfect though. William Shatner is a fantastic performance. That is Captain Kirk. That is how he responds to things, and just just brilliant. To me, Captain Kirk. I don't know about you, but when people say Star Trek, I mean, a lot of people will say. We were discussion was Beam Me Up Scotty, weren't they? They always say, "Oh, Captain Kirk, beam me up Scotty," or they'll say Star Trek, beam me up Scotty. And we discussed, obviously, that was said in the animated series, actually.
Yeah, well, because there's that thing. It wasn't actually said. Mm-hmm. Was it said? Was it not said? And people go, no, it's not actually been said. Well, it might not have been said on the original series, but he does say it in the animated series. So.
I think there was as well. I wish I knew more about this, but I think if someone does know, please drop a message to us. It was Saturday Night Live as well. I think in the States they made it popular. There was a sketch or something.
Yeah. I mean, he probably said something along the lines of "Beam me up, Scotty," but not actually those words.
Beam me up, or was that the song?
In the animated series, he does say. In the animated series, he does say "Beam me up, Scotty."
Yeah. But I love Captain Kirk. Like I said, he's the ultimate sort of hero character and to me, without Captain Kirk, Star Trek would be a lot different than it is now. I think definitely. Again, the way, like I said, when people think of Star Trek, people are not even Trekkies. They all think of probably Captain Kirk or Spock. But I'd say Captain Kirk definitely as well. So Captain Kirk definitely he is definitely become a sort of mascot to the franchise. I'm going to say as well, another part of my favorite characters, I'm going to say about species, because I think it's quite important.
Okay.
I know obviously you could potentially say human, but that's a bit boring. I like people from Earth. To me, my favorite species is the species that we don't know much of. And I really want to know more about them, and I would love to make more about them. I don't know, even as a separate film or anything, just anything about it, or a short trek.
Short trek. I know what he's going to say. So
is the Breen. I love the Breen. It's just the idea that no one can translate their language. No one knows much about them. However, they can just destroy Earth, like, in a blink of an eye, and no one understands their technology. And to me, that's just brilliant. It's just the fact that it's mysterious. They're such a mysterious race that no one knows much about them. However, they teamed up with Dominion, and they became such a threat to the Alpha Quadrants, and it's unbelievable. I mean, I know Worf talks about a legend of Klingon soldiers going there and then never coming back. All going to Breen and back. No one even knows what the Breen look like under their skin. And to me, that just opens so many doors. In some ways, I don't want them to tell me too much about the Breen. I kind of like the idea that it could be anything. I mean, I came across a little bit of fan fiction about the Breen as well.
All right.
So what was that? Something popped up on my screen then. Anyway.
You froze for a bit. I don't know.
Am I back on now?
Yeah, you're back on. Yeah.
So yeah, just to say, we're talking about the Breen, just in case that did go. I don't know what happened then. Probably internet connection. But yeah, it was like it's just a bit of fan fiction. There's a guy who's basically talking about kind of what we're doing now. But he was basically talking about what he thinks the Breen would look like. I mean, the idea that they came from a really cold planet. Because I think there is some episodes where characters actually talk about the Breen, and they do describe Breen being very cold, and then the idea they need the suits in order to keep them warm and keep themselves alive, basically. So there's lots of things that, and also where different things about the Breen and when they appear in different Star Trek episodes. Because I think
they are very intimidating. It's kind of that. I guess it is the mystery that makes you want to, like you say, but also at the same point, it's kind of like I quite like that they like wear the masks and like
and no one knows what they look like. No one knows, and it's just it really excites me about the Breen. I think because how I say how mysterious they are, and also they are referenced in TNG. They are spoken about, about Breen. They do talk about Breen and obviously the species of Breen as well. And also they do feature in the episode when my brain goes funny now, but basically Kira gets kidnapped and they're in a mine.
Yes.
In the mines, they're in the mines, isn't it? Because they're the miners on it. Oh no, they're not. They capture the miners. Is that right? Something like that on those lines. So they feature that, and also there's an episode where they're in prison. I think they're in a Gem Eldar prison in the Gamma Quadrant with the Dominion, and there's a Breen soldier, a warrior, wherever you want to describe it, and he's sort of just sat in the cell with his head down, and he's watched them trying to escape. Do you remember that episode as well in DS9? And again, we don't really know, because I think the Breen actually helps them in some way. I can't really remember, actually. I need to rewatch that episode now. But that was I remember watching, going like, well, who's that? I didn't really know much about the Breen. Well, I've heard about the Breen, obviously, because obviously they do reference them. But then when towards the end of DS9, then, and when they join up with the Dominion, that's when it gets really, really exciting. Then, and it's like that's the Breen. That's what they've all been talking. That's what we saw bits of, and now they're like a principal character, actually in the series now. But still, we didn't learn all about them. But I still love that about the Breen. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to talk about. I think I was to say my favorite character and my favorite species. So over to you, Dan.
I'm going to go from what we did in the previous slide and say favorite character from first series and second series. So favorite character from DS9 being my favorite series, probably isn't one that you would expect, but I love him so much just because I think I would be a lot like him, is Rom.
Oh yeah, really?
I love Rom. He's just he's so funny without meaning to be funny.
Yeah.
He's sort of that he tries so hard to be the right Ferengi and follow his brother and stuff, but he just can't. He's quite hapless and quite clumsy in a way, and it's just.
And he loves his noogie.
He loves his noogie. Yeah. I just. There's something about him. I don't know what. It's just I was drawn to him straight away. Maybe it's the way the actor played him. I don't know, but I love Rom. He kind of obviously, like he tries really hard to be this great, he kind of reminds me a bit of like Scooby Doo,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that he's a bit of a, sometimes he can be a bit of a coward. Um,
He's a comic
but
relief, isn't he? Definitely.
yeah, and like, I mean, him and Quark are just so great. I love. I always think me and you would be like that, sort of, you'd be Quark and I'd be Rom. Um, but one of my favourite Rom moments actually is in I think the episode's called something like "Take Me to the Holosuite" or something like that. It's the baseball episode,
Yes,
and
yeah.
he tries to play baseball, but he's just really crap, and it's just like that would be me, and he's sort of, Captain Sisko kicks him off the team,
Yeah, yeah.
and then it cuts to them all sat around in Quark's bar, and Rom just goes, "Captain Sisko hates me." And then Quark just slyly, it's just a throwaway line, but Quark just goes, "Who doesn't?" And that sums up that character's relationship, of their character's relationship. But yeah, Captain Sisko hates me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, I love Rom, and the fact that he ended up becoming Grand Nagus, he was like, yes, finally something good happened to him, and I love Rom. He's just
Yeah, yeah.
such a he's such a warm, character, I guess.
My favorite scene with Ron and Quark is when that they go through like the ducts or something, the air ducts.
Through the Jeffries tubes, yeah.
Jeffrey, yeah, sorry, Jeffrey, of course, yeah, Jeffries tube, that's what I mean. And they go through the Jeffries tube, and they actually end up in Sisko's office.
His office, yeah.
And it's just, our scene is brilliant.
Yeah,
I actually recorded that, didn't I? And sent it, was just me laughing over the top of it.
Yeah, I think it's a very popular GIF, isn't it? Yeah. Because you've got Quark's head, and then it's like Rom just going. It's that is a good moment. Yeah. And I think Quark goes, I think we took a wrong turn, and Sisko just goes, "It would seem that way." Yeah. But yeah, like I say, my favorite character in DS9 is Rom. He's such a lovely, warm person, I guess. And my second, from my second favorite series character, is a fan's favorite. It's one of my favorites. Is Data.
There he is.
There he is on screen. And I think, just obviously, like I said, TNG was like the first one I watched. And I was just so drawn to the fact that he was different. He was an android, had different color skin, and I think just being a little lad, I think I just was drawn to him most.
Yeah.
The way he spoke, he spoke differently to the humans, and the fact that he tries so hard to become
human. Yeah.
But I think everybody wanted to be like Data, and I think that's probably mentioned somewhere in the series that he tried so hard to become human.
Yeah.
Everybody else was sort of trying to be more like Data.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's Star Trek being philosophical. It questions, what makes us human, isn't it?
But Data for me is just a perfect character. He's intelligent. He obviously, because he's an android, but and he has a lot of good episodes as well. And Brent Spiner, the actor who played him, played a lot of different versions of Data. Obviously, played Law, Law, probably others as well. Noonien Singh, a lot of different Sun characters. Obviously, in Star Trek Picard, he plays another Sun character. He's even sung in an episode of Enterprise.
Yeah, no, yeah, of course, yeah. No, yeah, you're right.
So I think as well, I think I like Brent Spiner a lot as well.
He's very up. He's like a Jeffrey Combs as well, isn't he? That whole part.
He is a Jeffrey Combs.
You need him in the recipe sort of thing, isn't it?
And he was the first. I mentioned going to the conventions. He was the first autograph that I ever had.
Yeah.
From anywhere. So yeah, I mean, for me, my favorite character in TNG is Data. And I think a lot of people would agree that everybody likes Data. You can't not like Data in a way.
No, I agree with you. No, definitely. All right, should we move on? I think this might be the last one now. Actually, we're going to talk about.
Moving on, yeah.
So we have that's
Uh,
you
oh,
plug it. Hang on, I went too far.
right, we've got to go back all again. There we are.
Here we go. So, sorry. Right, here we go. So the future of Trek.
Here we go.
So yeah, just talk.
Should we? I mean,
There you go.
sorry. I was just going to say, currently, like obviously, the futures we've come from Voyager, DS9,
Yep.
Enterprise. Now we're on sort of that Discovery, Picard era.
Yeah.
It's sort of now gradually. Do we want to talk about Discovery and Picard?
Yeah. I mean, well, me and Dan as well. We like to make clear as well on this podcast. We think it all as Star Trek. I mean, a lot of fans we can understand won't really accept Discovery or Picard or anything new for that fact in the world of Star Trek. But for us, we love it all, really. We do love everything.
Yeah.
So we do still see it as Star Trek, which it is.
Yeah.
It is still Star Trek, whether, in my opinion, if we like it or not, it is still Star Trek, Don't get me wrong. I mean, I think Dan likes Discovery a bit more than me. I did enjoy Discovery, though, and I do like it. However, I preferred Picard, don't I?
Yeah.
Which is...
and then I'm the other way around. I prefer Discovery over Picard. Like I said, I liked Picard, but I couldn't get into it as much as I did Discovery. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah. But the future of Trek, the reason we got this in here because we're very quite excited for the next few years. We think there's a lot
coming out. Yeah.
For Star Trek. First of all, of course, it's been announced that I know it's the main writer, I believe, of Rick and Morty. They're putting together an animated series, so it'll be an adult animated series, so like Family Guy, American, that sort of style, Rick and Morty, that sort of style of animation. So it'll be for adults, not for kids. It'll be a comedy, Lower Decks. It's going to be called. I've seen pictures of different characters that will be featured in Lower Decks, and I'm really excited. I mean, one of the descriptions I read online was think Futurama, but Star Trek, and that excites me. That really excites me.
Yeah. And I mean, coming from I've never seen Rick and Morty, but knowing if it comes from Rick and Morty, it would be really good. That sort of Star Trek meets Futurama meets Family Guy, like the promises to be good. It's good that it's quite exciting that we, a lot of people love Family Guy, a lot of people love Rick and Morty, and like having adult cartoons, and now it's going into Star Trek. It's exciting. Exciting.
I think so. And like I said, it's important. What people do forget to remember is it's important that we do get new fans. And the more fans come, the more the franchise is going to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, which is important. So Lower Decks, I'm really excited about. Talk about as well in animation. There's also been talks where Nickelodeon's also signed a contract. There's going to be a brand new series for the kids. Mainly, it is going to be for the kids. Apparently, it's set around a group of teenagers who live in the Star Trek universe. I imagine they go on all sorts of different adventures there. But again, I'm really excited because I think it's going to have that element of like Lower Decks World, kind of like a Deep Space Nine, the whole idea of the average folk, you know what I mean? So the idea of young people maybe, and how they're connected to the world of Star Trek. So I even though it is for children, the Nickelodeon, I don't think it has a title yet, but I will probably still be watching. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because again, it's Star Trek. It will be Star Trek.
Exactly. And in the future, if you have children, well, you can watch Star Trek with your kids. Without watching Picard. Of course, Picard, as we has some words there and there. You may not want your children to hear, but at least then you're watching a TV series on Nickelodeon. You're safe to watch them with them, and still, get them into Star Trek. Definitely, yeah. On live action though as well, it's going to be a series apparently based on Area 50, Area 51, Section 31. Sorry, Section 31.
Area 31.
Area 51.
Section 31.
I made that mistake. Which is again should be quite exciting. Next, obviously, Section 31 was a big part of Discovery.
Yeah.
With Control. And also DS9 as well. Section 31, if you remember as well, was a big part of DS9. So an actual series all about Section 31. Again, should be quite exciting there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I think a lot of, well, all Star Trek fans would know about Section 31 or don't know about Section 31. I think it's probably mentioned in TNG somewhere as well, probably.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have been waiting to sort of see what Section 31 is truly about. And I mean, it was explored a lot in Discovery, and
yeah,
I would say I liked what they had sort of started with it. You know, so yeah, that should be very exciting. That sort of this, you know, because you know, the Romulans have something like, you know, the Tal Shiar. You know, is it something like that for them? You know, so what is it?
Yeah, the base of
is it, you know, I think you know, there's a lot of sort of secret societies, and it's like, oh, there's one in Star Trek. You know, you'd think everything was hunky dory with Starfleet, but you know, everybody was friends. But actually, there's the darker side of Starfleet. There's the darker side. You know, it's kind of like you know, the CIA or the FBI. You know what I mean? Is it something like that? You know, it's so.
Men in Black. It's I said the Men in Black.
the Men in Black. You know, it's yeah. So the fact that that's coming out, and I really like the two people from Discovery that are in the Section 31, the Mirror Universe. Giorgio, she's really good.
Yeah. Well, I think she's going to be a big part of it, though, isn't she? I think it's centered around her, actually. Yeah.
I really like her. I think she's great. So, because is she meant to be in it, or I
think it's pretty much centered around her, what I've read, actually. But
so, that's promising. I mean, like I say, I really like Discovery, and I really like her. So, yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, no, definitely. Also been talks as well about. I did have a title here, but you might remember what it was. The new series about the early days of the Enterprise with Captain Pike.
With Captain Pike, Strange New Worlds, I believe.
Strange New Worlds, yeah, that's right, yeah. Again, quite exciting. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, because obviously, as Star Trek fans, we would know the first captain to be Captain April. And Captain April, of course, hasn't been depicted, well, to my knowledge anyway, on anything related to Star Trek. So it'll be interesting. Are they still going to keep the idea that the first captain of the Enterprise, as we know it, was Captain April? So will there be a character called Captain April, or I don't know. I mean, because a lot of people would say that Pike was the first captain, but he wasn't the first captain of that Enterprise. No, it was actually indeed a Captain April by reference. I mean, the first time Gene Roddenberry actually pitched Star Trek to the network, he actually had it on a piece of paper, and he actually had the captain as Captain April. That was the name of the captain. So I do hope they sort of keep that in there, or at least reference him as Pike is just taken over from April. You know, so I know it'll be interesting though. But again, it's the early days. I think it explains the more relationship between Captain Pike and Number One, which really excites me, because when you think about it, they were the first Kirk and Spock. You know, I know obviously the Cage obviously was the first pilot and it did fail. However, that is the first Kirk and Spock really is, you got Pike and you got Number One, isn't it? Yeah.
I think whatever it's going to be, it is Star Trek. And like we said with, even if you don't like Discovery, if you like Discovery, if you don't like Picard, or you like Picard, whatever it is, it's still going to be Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I
No,
think
definitely.
whatever happens, with
Yeah,
these
yeah,
new
yeah.
series, it's going to be Star Trek. As fans, we'll check them out, and
Yeah.
we'll
Sure.
we'll have our own opinions about them if we like it, if not. And I
Yeah,
think that's.
exactly.
I mean, it's like with anything. Everybody either likes it or doesn't. And
Yeah, exactly.
sort of,
Yeah.
I respect the opinion of whatever you decide.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I know there should be. Well, apparently released. I actually haven't seen them yet. I was looking online earlier. Because the short treks on Netflix, they're quite hidden on Netflix. I find you have to sort of go.
Are they actually on Netflix? Because
Yeah, that's where I watched them. I'll have to like.
UK Netflix now.
Yeah. So basically, you go on Netflix. I think you have to go on Discovery, and you have to go on more episodes, I believe, and then that's how you find them. It's weird, yeah. Like I found them on. I'll be honest, I found them on accident. That's how I found the short
Oh
tracks.
right.
Uh,
I would like to watch the short tracks because I know there's a Tilly one from Discovery, and I think one of my favourite characters in Discovery is Tilly. So I do want to check out the short tracks, but I just don't. I didn't realize that. I'll have to check it out.
yeah, I think that's how I did. And there's a Harry Mudd one as well, which is quite cool.
Yeah, you said about the Harry Mudd one. So yeah, I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously, I also did the Kelvin universe. Well, apparently, I've read all different things about a fourth film as well.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams. I heard something as well. I mean, I've looked on the internet. I can't see much about it. I mean, Tarantino apparently gonna.
Yeah, Tarantino. Tarantino's wanted to do a Star Trek film for a long time, hasn't he? Not just obviously from the Kelvin universe. I think he's just wanted to do a Star Trek film.
Is that, or it'll be a separate from the Kelvin universe again? Then?
Well, that's what I've read and heard that he wants. He might do it in the Kelvin.
Yeah.
But I know that I've read that he's wanted to do a Star Trek film.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've also read somewhere as well that there'll be a series about the story of Khan as well, the rise of Khan. So the story of Khan before he met Kirk. So again, I mean, a lot of prequel stuff I can see, but it doesn't really bother me. I mean, that's one thing I loved about Picard and why I'm excited for Picard, because Picard is the future, isn't it? You know what I mean? It sets.
Yeah, and I think we've both agreed in the past when we've talked about Star Trek that for us, like Star Trek ended after Star Trek Nemesis, really. That was sort of, well, with Voyager, I guess, as well. Voyager coming home, but in Nemesis, Voyager's home because Admiral Janeway's in it.
Yeah, he's Admiral, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was I going to say? I think we've both talked about in the past that we want a series that's just set after Nemesis. What happened? And,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Picard is the future.
Yeah.
For me, it was bittersweet because it was set 20 years after, which I won't say anything bad about that. It's just it would be nice to sort of have something that's a bit more set after sort of Nemesis and sort of carrying on exploring. There's a lot more space to explore,
Yeah. Well, maybe I don't know that. I mean, this lower decks or even the kids thing. I mean, you never know. It could, it could deliver that for us, really. I mean, yeah.
Or like something like exploring the Gamma Quadrant a bit more,
we talk about
with the wormhole and stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's so much stuff in the Star Trek universe, I guess, that we haven't explored. Again, like bringing up the Breen again. We've never the Breen. So I like the idea of it being quite mysterious. But the thing about Star Trek is, well, in a way, the beauty of Star Trek, as we said, the franchise has got such a big future because it's never ending. I mean, that's the beauty.
There's a lot there's like you said, there's a lot you could still do with it. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. So yeah, if you are listening out there, CBS or wherever, Paramount, wherever, you need some ideas, you know where we are. My name's Matt, and his name's Dan. So please,
yeah,
get in the room.
House of Quark podcast.
Yeah.
That's where you should get. That's where you need to be looking.
I was watching the House of Quark podcast, and I thought, oh, let's get them involved. And yeah, I think we're going to wrap things up there now, Dan.
I think that's a good. Yeah. Oh yeah, time for you to.
Just a little. I mean, I started this little blog on Instagram a year ago. I'll be honest, I haven't posted much on there, but if I get more followers, I'm sure I'll post even more on there. It's just High on Sci-Fi. It's just my page on Instagram. Basically, I just post just more my memorabilia or things I've collected throughout the years. So Star Trek memorabilia, there's some Star Wars in there as well. I got some photographs when I met the Yoda guy, Nick. Nick, he's from St. Martin. He has a museum over in a street in St. Martin. The Yoda guy, if you don't know about him, he was the man responsible for the mechanics of Yoda in the original films. He has an amazing museum, so I had a selfie with him, of course, and took a few snaps there. But yeah, High on Sci-Fi, just basically me going to conventions and things like that, and just sharing my obsession with science fiction, basically. So I thought I'd plug that, if that's all right with you, Dan.
That is perfectly fine. I believe I am a follower.
You are a follower indeed, yeah. And last but not least, live long and prosper, everyone, and thank you. And we'll see you next time on
Tune in,
yeah, of course, to Matt and Dan in the House of Quark.